Hi, this is Afia again. I restarted the live session as the first one people said was choppy. I'm gonna wait to see if the attendants of the first session are able to make it. Okay, great. So I think I'm just gonna start over, but very quickly go through what I had already gone through. Um, just to jump right in, my name is Afia Yunus, and I'm the owner of Yunus Law. We are an exclusively immigration law practice, and we have offices in Philadelphia and Chicago. I have been inundated with questions regarding the recent executive action, and so I wanted to concentrate my efforts and really address people's questions as they come in. I also wanted to provide, a resource for everyone else. A lot of people are getting contact an immigration attorney, and so kind of wanted to put myself out there and say, here I am. Please like my Facebook page, Yunus Law PC, and also you can visit my website, www.yunuslaw.com. So glad it's better. So I'm going to jump right into the first executive order that is of most importance. I might have another live stream on the other two. They do affect immigrants and anyone who feels that immigrant issues are an issue that's important to them. So I may have a separate live stream on those two, but for now we're going to be addressing the executive action entitled Protecting the Nation from Foreign Terrorist Entry into the U.S., also referred to by the legal director of the ACLU as the Muslim ban. Now, the first provision I'm going to go over is the suspension of the United States Refugee Assistance Program. Now, this is being suspended for 120 days from the date of the order. There is an exception for religious minorities, and we'll go over that in detail later as it appears again. And it reduces the number of refugees that will be admitted for 2017 from Obama's 110,000 last year to a mere 50,000 this year. Now, it's important to note that in January alone, we had 29,835 refugees admitted. Although that's phenomenal, that leaves us with a little bit less than 22,000 refugees that can be admitted for the remainder of the year. And jumping right into the second provision, there is an indefinite ban on Syrian refugees. And basically this continues until the president determines that it's within the national interest to lift the ban. And as anyone can see, that basically means it's an indefinite period of time and no one can tell when that will be lifted. Now, the third provision of most importance to many of my clientele and people who have reached out to me is the ban on the non-immigrant and immigrant entry of nationals of 7 Muslim majority countries. These countries, as most of you probably already know, are Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Sudan, Somalia, and Yemen. And I hope I mentioned Libya. Again, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Sudan, Somalia, Yemen, and Libya. And I had mentioned that the basis for these 7 countries do have some legal standing in the current Immigration and Nationality Act, but not what the Trump administration is purporting that the Obama administration basically selected these 7 countries and he just went with what Obama said. There's only 2 of these countries that are specifically mentioned in the INA, which is the Immigration Nationality Act. The rest of them were mentioned during the visa waiver restrictions. We don't have to go into that, but if anybody has specific questions about where these 7 countries came from, you can private message me. Now, the question is, what does this mean? You know, a lot of people have really reached out to me and said, you know, how does this affect me? So first, I'm going to address the nationals of this country, of these 7 countries, and also address the fact that after 30 days from the date of the order, the Department of State and Department of Homeland Security will be basically submitting, doing an analysis of which countries in the world are not responding to requests for information, very vague, and then provide an additional list of countries to President Trump 60 days from the order that they think should be added. Now, I just want to make clear, and I've said this to everyone who asked me questions, that at any point in time, President Trump can add any country that he wants. And this is really something that's come from the American Immigration Lawyers Association have also confirmed that at any point we should be prepared that additional countries will be added. This ban also may affect the adjudication of petitions and applications pending within the United States. So nationals of these countries, for example, who have a pending naturalization application or a pending employment authorization application should contact me or any immigration attorney. Their applications may very well be affected. We have gotten a directive from USCIS, which is the agency inside the U.S. who adjudicates these type of applications, that they have been ordered to stop processing all petitions of nationals from these 7 countries. So I did get questions from individuals who had, green card renewal applications pending. Please contact an immigration attorney before going in for an interview, for example, or going to the USCIS field office to have your passport stamped. I would definitely contact me directly before doing that. Another effect of this ban is the issuance of new visas. So the ban specifically targets nationals of these countries who already have a non-immigrant or immigrant visa. So it doesn't specifically address those who have pending visa applications abroad or who may want to apply for a visa now. Unfortunately, we have received a report from the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, so this would be Iraqi nationals, that they are no longer accepting new applications for non-immigrant or immigrant visas. We've also seen a statement from the Department of State, which is the agency that accepts these applications abroad, that, quote, visa interviews will not be scheduled for these nationals. So, this ban is not just going to apply to those who are trying to enter the United States. It has very far-reaching implications that are not being addressed clearly. They're not being, the population's not being informed adequately about how this ban is really far-reaching and goes beyond simple entry into the U.S. Now, finally, the implication of this is, what about dual nationals? I've gotten a lot of questions from people who are, for example, a Canadian national and hold, may have been born in Iraq, or individuals who hold a dual nationality. So again, although the executive order doesn't specifically address this issue, it has been stated by the Department of State that this ban will apply. Again, it will apply to dual nationals, not nationals of the U.S., but nationals of other countries, for example, Canada or the UK, we're back, or Australia. So countries that would normally not require a visa to enter the US, um, those individuals who happen to also be a national of one of these 7 countries will not be allowed to enter. So those are the implications of the ban. There's just 3 more provisions I wanted to go over. The fourth one is that the order suspends the non-immigrant visa waiver program. So that's basically individuals who are applying for a non-immigrant visa abroad. Some of them qualified to not be interviewed. For example, if they're renewing under the same visa category within 1 year of their initial application, they don't have to go through an interview. That program, President Trump has suspended. The 5th provision is a screening of all immigration benefits. This is another one a lot of people are not talking about. It's extremely vague and subjective. And so basically, it directs the relevant federal agencies to develop screening standards and procedures for all immigration benefits applications. So, we'll have to wait and see really what that means. And finally, President Trump wanted to revamp the biometric entry and exit program. What that means to you all is that they're trying to create a system whereby when you enter, you're fingerprinted if you are entering on a visa, and then when you exit, you're fingerprinted again. And this will run through a system that basically tracks your entry and exit more thoroughly than the current system, and will track those individuals who are overstaying their visa. So those are the major provisions of the executive order. I didn't want to spend too much time on it because I have tons of questions. But I just wanted to run through also the court orders. Even though all of this is in place from the executive order, we do thankfully have attorneys working on the ground and have 3 court orders that have been put in place since yesterday. So first, the court order out of New York basically puts a temporary order in place, not allowing CBP officials to remove individuals. That means sending them back to their country of origin who fall under this executive order. The one in DC, there was also a court order out of DC, really only applies to those individuals at Dulles, so we won't go over that. But the third one is out of Massachusetts, and it's the most important. It really is the most far-reaching in that it puts a temporary stay, and a stay basically means you can enforce the order at all, on enforcing the order by sending back the individuals or even detaining them. So the difference between the one in New York and the one in Massachusetts is that the one in Massachusetts goes even further in not allowing the detention, which means basically jailing these individuals during the time that this executive order is in place. So, I'll go over what that means. I just wanted to give you guys also an update on the litigation. The ACLU obviously filed a lawsuit, and CARE will be filing a lawsuit tomorrow. Obviously, they're purporting that this executive order violates the constitutional and statutory rights laid out for these individuals. So hopefully we'll keep following those. And if there's any updates, stay tuned to my Facebook page, Yunus Law PC, and you'll get constant updates on the lawsuits and the court orders and what's the status of the executive order right now. Even though the court orders have been issued, unfortunately, immigration attorneys are still getting word that several people are still detained or being held in secondary inspection for extremely lengthy periods of time and being denied right to counsel when there is a right. So we're still working on having these court orders really put into motion. Now, what I want to do now is just give general advisals to specific groups of people. This does not apply to specific individuals. So if you have an individual question that applies to you, please either post that in the feed or message me. So generally, obviously, if you're a lawful permanent resident and you are a national of these 7 countries, we do not advise travel. We do not advise travel outside of the United States. Again, if you are a lawful permanent resident and a national of these 7 countries, but you're currently outside of the United States, number one, obviously contact an immigration attorney before you travel, but also it's very important that you don't sign any document that maybe CBP or individuals at the embassy try to get you to sign. There is a form called the I-407. It's an abandonment of permanent residency. And we're getting word that CBP officers abroad at CBP ports, for example, in Abu Dhabi airport and these other airports, they have CBP customs outside the United States, so that when you get to the United States, you just go straight to your baggage claim. So there are reports that at these checkpoints, they're asking lawful permanent residents who are nationals of these 7 countries to sign this abandonment of permanent residency. And I want to make it clear, you are under no obligation to sign this I-407 and immediately refuse. Now, again, you could even be asked if you're trying to travel from within the United States to outside the United States, asked to sign one of these documents, do not sign it. If you are a lawful permanent resident and you're currently inside the United States, but you're not a national from these 7 countries, but you're a national of a Muslim majority country. For example, I've gotten a lot from Pakistani nationals. My general advice is, again, specifically talk to me about your specific situation, but general advice is don't travel abroad. Like I said in the beginning of the live stream, at any point, President Trump can add additional countries. And it would not be surprising, quite honestly, for him to add Pakistan or Afghanistan. So I definitely do not recommend any lawful permanent resident who is a national of a Muslim majority country to travel abroad at this time. If you are a visa holder and currently in the United States, so you're not a lawful permanent resident, but you are a student visa holder, or you hold an H-1B or an investor visa. So any non-immigrant visa, which is a visa for somebody who's temporarily residing in the US, and you are a national of one of these 7 countries, we advise, number one, do everything you can to maintain your lawful status. And number 2, do not travel abroad. So unfortunately, as I stated earlier, there does appear to be a hold on the adjudication of petitions to renew or extend your current visa. So for example, if you're on a student visa in the US and you're an Iraqi national and your student visa will expire in May, what I'm doing right now is advising to maintain your current status. And as we approach the expiration of your visa, we're going to try to go ahead and see if we can prepare the application to extend. But if there's any indication solidly that USCIS will not be adjudicating extension applications, then unfortunately you may have to depart. As an immigration attorney, I never advise to overstay your visa, especially now. One of the immigration executive orders regards deportation and removal proceedings. And so individuals who overstayed visas, who during the Obama administration were not placed into removal proceedings because, they weren't criminals or they weren't prioritized. Now that's kind of been thrown out of the window. So anyone who overstays a visa and has no other immigration violation really can be subject to removal. And lastly, I wanted to address the U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens have, I've looked into this, I've talked to many colleagues, U.S. citizens have an absolute right to enter the U.S. So will you be, let's say you're a national of the U.S., but you're also a national of Sudan or Somalia, you should be allowed to enter the United States. You have a right to an attorney at inspection. Now, the one thing that U.S. citizens are encountering is secondary inspection at the border. What this means is basically, you're taken to a secondary room, and you end up waiting there for quite some time. It's a very lengthy and exhausting process. And CBP officers, ask you all kinds of questions and sometimes seize your property. Now, just so you're educated as a U.S. citizen on your rights at the border, you do have to answer questions relating to, them searching any, they have a right to search your person and anything that you have on you. Obviously, you don't have to be subjected to a strip search. But for example, a lot of people ask me, can they take my laptop? Can they take my cell phone? They can, but the ACLU advises that you're not obligated to provide your password or unlock the phone or unlock the laptop before you give it to them. We always advise that any secondary inspection officer, you request their name, their badge number, and the agency that they work for. Number two, if they try to ask you any questions that relate to First Amendment rights, such as your affiliation with social groups, your religious affiliation, you do not have to respond and demand to immediately speak with an attorney. There are, immigration attorneys at every airport now, and if you have, if you continue to demand to speak with an attorney, sometimes they'll cease their questioning, and obviously it can end up with you, asserting your right and hopefully getting your right to an attorney. I think that's everything for U.S. citizens. So I'm going to open it up to questions now. Oh goodness, let me scroll up. So. First question. I'm a Somali-born German citizen who's been refused ESTA. Then I applied for a non-immigrant visa, which is, he's saying a B1, B2, through the US Embassy in London. They put me on administrative processing. I'm really stuck. Can you advise on what to do? So just to break this down for everyone, just in case, we can apply it to yourself as well. ESTA is another name for the visa waiver program. What this does is it allows citizens of certain countries, such as the UK, to enter the United States without a visa. Unfortunately, nationals of these 7 countries, like I had said initially, really can't take advantage of the visa waiver program at this time. So that's probably why this individual is saying they had to, they were refused. And then they had to apply for a non-immigrant visa, which is the B1, B2, which is a visitor, basically what's commonly referred to as a visitor visa. And then he's been placed on administrative processing. Administrative processing, unfortunately, is kind of the black hole of immigration applications. Basically means that you've been flagged for whatever reason, usually a national security reason, and your application can be held for quite some time. What I would advise to you, what I advise to all the AP individuals in AP is you can retain an immigration attorney, such as myself. What I usually do is contact the embassy where your application was filed and find out, number one, whether your file has been sent to DC. So basically, there's a period of time where your file remains in the embassy, and that's when you can ask for a consular officer, a supervising consular officer, to review your application. If the application has been sent to DC, which is kind of the secondary level, then unfortunately there's not much we can do other than continue to follow up and put the pressure. If you, so those are kind of the two things we can do for administrative processing cases. So definitely, Mr. El-Hashimi, reach out to me and I'll see if there's something specifically I can do. This really applies to anyone in administrative processing. If you first inquire if your file is still at the embassy that you filed the application at. If it is, then you can request for a secondary review of the application. I don't recommend doing this on your own. Your request will likely be denied unless it's through an attorney. And secondly, if it's already reached DC, then it's unlikely there's much we can do. If you have a U.S. citizen petitioner, then there are more options. The next question is, should Muslim travelers who have a green card but aren't from those 7 countries stay home, or will we be okay? So to answer your question, Abigail, so these are for green card holders who are nationals of any other country besides the 7. So what I had said was, if you are a national of a Muslim majority country, for example, Pakistan, and you're a green card holder currently in the United States, I do not recommend foreign travel. This is because, as I stated, President Trump can add a number of countries over the next few days, weeks, months, and God forbid you're outside of the country and the country that you're from is added to the list. As a green card holder, you may be refused entry. So I do not recommend travel. Let's continue. Okay, next question. I'm traveling in March. Me and my 7-year-old are green card holders from Pakistan, and younger 2 children are U.S. citizens. What could possibly happen? Me and my 7-year-old are green card holders. Okay. Again, like I just said, specifically Pakistanis, I highly discourage travel outside of the U.S. right now. I would say the country that's most likely to be added at this point, unfortunately, it's probably Pakistan. The Trump administration is being pressured to add Pakistan. So Pakistani nationals in particular, if you are a green card holder in the U.S. right now, I do not recommend foreign travel. Even though your younger 2 children are U.S. citizens, it would make a difference if you're placed into removal proceedings in the U.S. Then the citizenship of your children does play a role in whether you can be removed. But these type of executive orders that he's issuing, they're really not providing any exceptions or anything for parents of U.S. citizens. So I don't recommend travel. I've gotten this question a lot, and I'm glad I got this here because I spoke with a group of women today about this specifically. It's, what can U.S. citizens do to help? And I really wanted to go over this, so I'm glad I got the question. There's a lot you can do. Number one is to contact your congressman. Contact your senator and your representatives, federal. I'm talking about federal right now. There are templates on the ACLU's website, on CARE's website, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and you really just have to kind of put in your name and your email address, and it goes straight to your representative based on the address, the city that you say that you're from. So you don't even have to do the legwork. I highly recommend doing this, pressuring them to act against these executive orders. So that's something very important that U.S. citizens can do. Secondly, as we all know, there was also in one of the other executive orders information about secured communities, and how this will be fighting against sanctuary cities, and how federal grant money will be withheld from sanctuary cities. So what I've been advising individuals to do is really pressure your local and state officials to stand their ground against the federal government and the administration, and really voice that you are a constituent and you stand with immigrants, and that even to go so far as to request that your representative, whether it be your local city council or your city mayor, to declare your city a sanctuary city. I've also even heard from individuals that they've submitted statements to their local police department to issue, kind of pressured them to issue a statement that they will not comply with the ICE detainers. You may have heard about the ICE detainers. They are basically requests by ICE to hold individuals that the local law enforcement agency has held for whatever reason, and hold them until ICE gets there to take them. Now, local law enforcement agencies, some have expressed that they will not cooperate with ICE officials. And so if, find out about your local police department and see if they have issued a statement on the issue. And if they haven't, you can really pressure them to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I live in this city, and I want you to issue this type of statement or stand on this issue. And finally, what I've told people is really just stand in solidarity with, your fellow brothers and sisters who are immigrants in this country. Even so much as going up to someone and saying, I'm here for you, and I stand by you, and I stand with you. We've all seen, multiple protests that you can go to, that you can attend. You can also go to your local mosque and attend the Friday prayer service, usually at 1 p.m., just to show solidarity. Our mosque here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, we have what's called an open Jummah every now and then, and we advertise it, and we let people in the community know that it's basically an opportunity for you to come and express solidarity with the Muslim community and show your support. You can also reach out to your local mosque if they don't have anything like that, and recommend it. There's really a lot to do, and so I don't want you to feel that you have all this energy to help and you don't know where to invest it. Please reach out to me personally if you feel that way, and I can either guide you in the direction of what to do, or maybe even connect you with people in your area who can help you. Just a side note, I'm working on drafting a statement requesting my own police department to issue a sanctuary space statement, and also to my local mayor and city council to do so. I may publish it, and you can just kind of put in your name and your information, so that all the work gets done on my end, and you just put in your name and give it to your local officials. Okay. Again, what about people coming to New York from Pakistan on a visa? So this is, I guess, for Pakistani nationals arriving. She's saying visa, but that could mean many things. If you know someone who's already en route, you can contact me directly, because we do have a database of attorneys who are there, who need to know about these individuals who are en route and traveling to the US, so that they can have an attorney present. I don't know if I made this clear, but non-immigrants don't have a right to an attorney prior to clearing customs. Immigrants, that means lawful permanent residents, have a right to an attorney if they can show 2 years of presence in the US, and only in specific circumstances. It's tough to express that right if you're here on like a tourist visa or an H-1B before you clear customs. You can, however, state that you have a fear of returning home. That's if you have a fear of returning home. I never advise to say that if you don't. And then you're entitled to a hearing before an immigration judge. And if you have a fear of returning home, you state that and you demand to have your hearing before an immigration judge. Okay, next question. We're traveling to Dubai and Abu Dhabi in April with our children. Me and my husband are naturalized citizens, but our children were born here. I'm assuming she's saying the US. Since the trip is paid for, what should we do to protect ourselves so we can return home safe? Should we consult an attorney? Da, da, da. So, naturalized US citizens, under the Immigration Nationality Act have the same rights as born US citizens. The only fear is, revocation proceedings, but unless you have, your green card application was done lawfully, you shouldn't have any reason to fear, revocation. You are considered a US citizen and you have all the same rights as a born US citizen. You're saying you're traveling to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Again, it should be fine, but we are advising that even U.S. citizens are encountering lengthy and exhausting and often anxiety-ridden secondary inspections at the airport. So go with that in mind, that when you return, if you are a national of, let's say, Iraq, you were a national of one of these 7 countries prior to naturalizing, then you may encounter, questioning. You may be stuck at the airport for several hours. Go with that in mind, and if it's something you're still willing to risk, then just make sure that you're informed. Okay, she's saying, should we contact CARE? Absolutely, you can contact your local CARE chapter, and I'm sure they also have resources available to you. Okay. As a born U.S. citizen, should you go for Umrah in the upcoming months? Again, as a same thing with all U.S. citizens, whether you're born here or naturalized, you have an absolute right of entry into the U.S. You have a right to an attorney at the border when being questioned beyond, where you went. But go with the caveat that you may be subject to extensive questioning and secondary screening. So if this is something that you personally in a cost-benefit analysis realize that it's worth it for you, then that's really up to you. But as an attorney, it's my obligation to inform you that you may be subject to pretty lengthy secondary screening at the border, when you arrive in the U.S. My husband is a Brazilian green card holder, but would be traveling with me, a Muslim in hijab. I am a U.S. citizen. Would it be bad for us to travel outside the U.S. together? This would be the same as if, anytime you're traveling as a Muslim in hijab, we all know that we encounter issues. So that still remains, if you're going to be subject to additional screening. Your husband as a Brazilian national who's a lawful permanent resident of the United States, I don't foresee any specific issues. I also don't foresee any specific issues with you being a U.S. citizen. Just, be aware that you may be subject to additional screening, but you're not stating where you're from. So if you're not one of a national, you weren't previously a national of one of these 7 countries, you should be fine. I am applying for citizenship. I am married to a citizen. Is there any chance they will stall my case to become a citizen? So like I stated earlier, if this Muslim ban does affect current pending applications, including applications for naturalization. So if you are a national, this is for Waqas Suri, if you are a national of one of the 7 countries, then you may encounter a significant delay in your citizenship application, and it may even be permanently suspended from adjudication. So they may stall your case. If you are not from one of these 7 countries, then there's no indication from USCIS that applications from within the US will be stalled. Okay, so Huma Yassin's asking me to talk about people being asked to sign away their green cards. I did talk about this, but just to run over it again, as it's a very important issue, the document's called the I-407. If you are a lawful permanent resident, whether you encounter border officials within the United States or outside of the United States, do not sign any document that they ask you to sign. Do not sign anything. You are not legally obligated to sign that I-407, and so I just want to make clear that you should not sign it and you do not have to sign it. Signing the I-407 basically revokes your lawful permanent resident status, and it's really a way for them to kind of get rid of you the easy way out, and they've been pressuring individuals at the border to sign them, and unfortunately these people are uninformed and vulnerable, and so they sign them. So I'm just making it clear again not to sign the I-407 or really any document that CBP gives you to sign. For lawful permanent residents, other than staying in the US for 2 continuous years, what are the other requirements to have a right to an attorney? So the other, there's really only one other one that's pertinent here, and that would be if you have a credible fear of returning to your home country. So, you know, unfortunately, it wouldn't apply to Syrians, but if you have any credible fear, if you're a member of a social group or a member of a specific racial group or ethnic minority in your country, and you fear persecution because of that, then as an LPR, you have a right to a credible fear hearing. And at that, you can have an attorney. So first demand that hearing, demand to be seen by an immigration judge because you have a credible fear of persecution. And then you can get an attorney. It's kind of a backdoor way if you don't meet the other requirement. Assalamu alaikum, sister. I'm a Somali born. Okay, I already read that one. Do you think there's a risk that India will be added to the list of nations? I've gotten this question a lot. India is not a Muslim majority country. President Trump has tons of business in India. So, you know, the Immigration Lawyers Association really doesn't see India being added. You know, we've discussed different countries that we feel would be added, and definitely India is not one of them. I don't want you to hold me to anything as far as, you know, which countries will be added, but, you know, India's not really of concern right now to me personally of being added to the list. What are they allowed to do and what are they not allowed to do when you're subjected to additional screening? I'm a US citizen. This question is for everyone. Can they take our phone and laptops? So they can take your phone and laptops. They can seize your property that you have on you. So some people, what they do is, you know, kind of delete everything before they come, but they can't ask you for your passwords. This is something I found really interesting. The ACLU stands by this, that you don't have to give your passwords. And so, you know, if you want, lock it all up, but again, they can take it. So, you know, back everything up before you travel if you're going to travel, and make sure that anything important is saved elsewhere. But usually, I just want to kind of a practical note. If you start demanding an attorney and you start asking them for their name and badge number, things change really quick. If they know they have an informed U.S. citizen who's demanding her rights, who's standing up, who's not, you know, a vulnerable person, then you know, I want to say that I would hope that they usually kind of they treat those individuals differently than some who don't seem to know their rights at all. Assalamu alaikum. My father-in-law and mother-in-laws are coming from Pakistan next month on a B2, which, like I said, is a visitor visa. Do you think there will be any problems at customs? first of all, I'm shocked your parents were granted a visit visa from Pakistan. So, congratulations. Those are very hard to get now. Um, do I think they'll have any problems? Maybe. I would definitely prepare your in-laws. Um, wear comfortable shoes. And I would definitely say have them contact an immigration attorney. It doesn't hurt. I do this personally, but this live stream was not intended to have everybody come to me. But I do uh, like advisal briefings prior to travel. So if you feel like that's something that your father-in-law and mother-in-law would benefit from, I do speak Urdu, then you can give me a call. So what that basically entails is kind of running through everything I just said with you guys, advising them what to say, what not to say, what rights they have, and all of that. So definitely, contact me, and I think that would be beneficial for them before they travel. My husband is still on AP, waiting for a green card interview. We didn't use a lawyer to file. Shall we even travel to the Middle East? I'm afraid they won't let him back in. Pakistani passport. So when you say he's still on AP, I'm assuming you're saying administrative processing, and you're waiting for the green card interview. Sorry, this is moving up. Pakistani passport. You're not clear if he's in the US or if he's outside of the US. If he's in the US right now, he's waiting for his green card interview, and he's a Pakistani passport holder, I do not recommend traveling to the Middle East. Definitely don't recommend traveling to the Middle East. If he's a Pakistani national and he's waiting for his green card interview, that means he's not currently a lawful permanent resident. So it's not clear how he's here. But I don't recommend travel on a Pakistani passport. Flying both domestically and internationally in the near future. If we are citizens of the US and need to be prepared that we can still be harassed just like any other non-citizen, how can we prepare ourselves besides having our passports, birth certificates? Should we contact a lawyer? Okay, so a lot of US citizens are concerned, and rightfully so. You're already prepared by watching this live stream, in that you know your rights at the border. That's very important. And number two, just be prepared for possible secondary inspection. Definitely have all documentation to prove your status. It may even be helpful to have your U.S. birth certificate and your U.S. passport. If you feel that this is not enough information for you and you want more direct information, definitely contact an immigration attorney prior to travel, and they can kind of break down more succinctly what rights you have and address any concerns that you have. You really, as a U.S. citizen, are empowered by your rights and knowledge of your rights. And so if you have to travel and you want to travel, you have a right to re-enter the U.S. You have plenty of rights. And so it's really important to just have that knowledge before you travel. Can they use my Facebook posts denouncing Trump's policies and use them against me in any way? Absolutely not. That's, like I said, First Amendment protected speech. I want to make clear they can only ask you questions that pertain to your travel. They cannot ask you questions about your religious beliefs, your political affiliation. So if you're denouncing Trump, that relates to your political affiliation. They cannot question you on that. They can't question, a lot of them have been asked to log into their social accounts, and unfortunately, a lot of U.S. citizens just kind of go on their laptop and log in and give all the information. You don't have to do that. Do permanent residents who are nationals of the listed countries, I'm looking at the time, do permanent residents who are nationals of the 7 listed countries currently abroad need to first obtain the waiver from the executive order, or do yesterday's rulings remove that requirement? So I've heard a lot of people talk to me about this waiver of the executive order. There are waivers available at consulates and embassies abroad for inadmissibility, but there's currently no specific waiver that has been enacted or by President Trump or any other agency for the executive order. So there's no like waiver that you can apply for at the consulate or the embassy to exclude you from the executive order if you're a national of these countries. The only people that are excluded, like I had briefly mentioned, are religious minorities. So if you're a Muslim from these countries, then you wouldn't have any type of waiver. Um, uh, Now, yesterday's rulings, it's important to note that the court orders do put a stay on the executive order, but we're still, individuals are still being detained as we speak. So we're still having significant pushback from Customs and Border Protection and immigration officials. So that's why we, as a legal immigration community, are not recommending travel, even though the court order is in place. Do permanent residents who are national, okay, we already went through that. My wife is a green card holder. She's a Yemeni national. Do you recommend her to apply for U.S. citizenship at this point? No. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, like I said, USCIS, which is the adjudicating agency, has already stated that they are putting a hold on applications, including the N-400, from nationals of these 7 countries. So, I wouldn't want you to waste your $640 filing this application when she's a valid green card holder right now. Additionally, filing for U.S. citizenship kind of reopens everything. When you file an N-400 application, you kind of put the basis for your green card at question. So sometimes, unfortunately, I have green card holders file the naturalization application, and then all of a sudden USCIS is opening up the whole can of worms of your lawful permanent resident status wasn't properly adjudicated. So for someone who's a Yemeni national, I do not recommend filing an N-400 application right now. My kids and wife, all green card, are visiting Pakistan. They are due back in May. Do you think due to the current situation, I tell them to come sooner? Yes. I would have to say yes. I do fear that Pakistan may be added. But obviously I try with my clients to understand each individual situation. So, I would love Sayed Hamid Akhtar to speak with you directly and just figure out their specific situation. Some people have, you have to really weigh the cost benefit analysis here and see what's best for you. As a general advisor, I would say, come back sooner rather than later, because if Pakistan's added, then they may not be allowed to enter. Do you think traveling within the U.S. will get complicated for the next few weeks, especially for young Muslim men? That's a great question. Sure. I would say yes. Especially for someone who's not a U.S. citizen, domestic travel may become an issue. Even though you don't have to present your passport and you only present your driver's license, I don't find it outside of the realm of possibility that they start asking for passports or racially profiling at the borders. Racially profiling at the airport. Okay. Do you think Afghanistan is likely to be added to the list of banned countries? So I just want to, before I answer this question, I just want to make clear that as far as which countries will be added, I know as much as you know. It's really up in the air. So when you ask me, do you think this country will be added? I'm kind of reluctant to answer because it's really anybody's guess. The only reason I point out Pakistan is because the White House press secretary and others in the Trump administration have specifically said, well, we might add Pakistan. But other countries, while it's not impossible, like I said, it is possible for him to add these other countries, but I don't want to start going into a guessing game and start giving clients probabilities as to which country will be added. Do you think it's safe to travel within USA for a visitor and citizens? Okay. So by visitor, I'm assuming you mean like someone on a visit visa. Um, this is for Omnization. Someone on a visit visa, like I said, be prepared for a little bit more questioning, but you're authorized to travel within the US on a visit visa, 100%. So just make sure it's domestic travel. US citizens, I don't see any issue with domestic travel. Salam, my brother-in-law is in India and he is on a work permit. He's a green card holder. Is he going to have any problems? So you said he's on a work permit, Yasmin Ali, but then you said he's a green card holder. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that. That would be contradictory. So if he's a U.S. green card holder and he's currently in India, like I said, I don't foresee Indian nationals having any issues. But again, with the small disclaimer that I don't know which countries can or will be added. So well, I do know that any country can be added, but I don't know which will be added. So, but Indian nationals that have reached out to me, I don't foresee an issue with Indian nationals. It's not a Muslim majority country. I just read that the White House is going to leave people with a green card alone. Yes, I also read that. If you read in his same statement, he said, but we will comply with the order. So, I don't want to go into the politics. I'm trying to stick with the law here. But they're not leaving people with a green card alone, period. I'm sorry if you answered this. I didn't hear you address my question. My mom and aunts will be coming from Umrah. My aunt and cousin have a visa with a Pakistani passport. What should I expect? What should I tell them? So her aunt and cousin have a visa with a Pakistani passport. Please, Neela Hussein, specify what type of visa they have. It does make a difference. But if you're saying they're green card holders and they have Pakistani passport, as of right now, Pakistan has not been added to the list, so they should potentially expect additional screening, maybe additional questioning, but they should be allowed to enter. If Pakistan is added, obviously that changes. Oh, so she clarified that her husband is here on advanced parole when she said AP. Okay. So this question is for a friend, Sadia Togrel, who became a citizen 5 years ago and is planning on going to Pakistan next month. Is it safe for them to go since they haven't been a citizen for a long time? Absolutely. The length of citizen, just to answer the first part of your question, the length that you've been a U.S. citizen does not affect your rights as a U.S. citizen. Whether Joe has been a citizen for 1 month and I'm born in the U.S., we both are afforded the same rights. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have the rights of a U.S. citizen. So if they're planning to go in Pakistan and they're a U.S. citizen, it should be fine. But like I said, be prepared for a lengthy secondary inspection. If you don't feel like the person can handle that, or they may have anxiety, or any number of reasons, they're elderly, then I don't advise travel. I have a Pakistani passport with a temporary green card. Will be eligible for a permanent green card this year. Will this affect my chances? So for those of you who aren't aware, a temporary green card is for those individuals who married a U.S. citizen, but were not married, but were married for less than 2 years when they applied. So they are given a temporary green card, also referred to as the 2-year green card. So this individual is asking if they should apply, when they apply to get the permanent green card, also referred to as the 10-year green card, will they have any issues? As it stands right now, USCIS is not affecting processing of applications by Pakistani nationals. If Pakistan is added to the list, then potentially your application to get the 10-year green card may be affected. But as it stands right now, applications by Pakistani nationals with USCIS are being processed per usual. I have a green card, married to a U.S. citizen. I pleaded to a Class B misdemeanor, which is not a CIMT. It will be 3 years this coming August. Can I file early for an N for 100? Okay, so this sounds like a non-Muslim ban question. Dalit Siddiqui, please just, you can email me, afia@yunus.com, and I'll answer your question. My son is a born citizen. He got married 1 year ago to a Lebanese girl, and she got approved for a green card, and she and my son will come next Thursday. Are they going to have problems? So she's been granted an immigrant visa. She'll get the green card when she arrives in the United States. She shouldn't have an issue entering as it stands right now. Lebanon is not one of the 7 banned countries, so she should be okay, meaning she should be allowed to enter does not mean she may not be subjected to additional screening. So just like I said, anybody traveling, just be prepared for additional screening. And if this ban doesn't necessarily affect your country, that you're not a national of those 7 countries, just be prepared for additional screening and know your rights. I think that's the most important thing is know your rights. I'm planning to go to Umrah next month in February. Is it safe? My nationality is Indonesia. Should be fine. Like I said, same thing. You're not one of the 7 banned countries. You don't state, though, what your status in the U.S. is. So I'm going to refrain from advising until I find out what status you are in currently. But assuming you have valid status in the U.S., and assuming your status will continue beyond the time that you return, you should be fine. For right to an attorney for LPR, is there any? Okay, I already answered that. Have you heard reports of people having their TSA pre-status inexplicably revoked? One man received a letter recently informing him that they could not continue his TSA pre-status, wondering if it's a trend. I'm a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, and usually any trends are reported, and immigration attorneys report, something like that. That would be so unusual. So I have not seen a trend of this happening, but I'd definitely be interested in finding out more about it. So Zanya Za, please, email me and let me know if you know any more people that's happening to. My husband, U.S. citizen, is going to Pakistan in March. He has a Pakistan national ID card. I'm not sure if this is dual citizen. Should he get a Pakistani visa and travel with that instead? Would it make a huge difference? I don't know what you mean by Pakistan visa. He should definitely travel on his U.S. passport. That's fine. It doesn't make a huge difference. From my understanding, individuals who hold a national ID card are Pakistani nationals. So they're dual nationals, because the national ID card kind of functions as so a passport functions as their travel document, but the national ID card, which I'm assuming you're referring to like the Nadra card, is a statement of their nationality. So he should be fine as a U.S. citizen, definitely travel on the U.S. passport. However, like I said earlier, he may be subject to additional screening upon arrival. So just, you can contact me. You're my sister. So you can contact me and I can advise him to what his rights are at the border. My conditional green card is on extension. Well, I don't know what you mean by extension. While my permanent residence application is being processed. Oh, okay. I'm planning to travel on a Pakistani passport with my U.S. citizen husband. Do you foresee any problem being paroled back into the country? Absolutely. So what this basically means is this individual has a conditional green card. The conditional green card expired, but they filed the application to remove the conditions in time, but they haven't gotten the 10-year card yet. So basically you have a notice, which is like a piece of paper that says, you're a conditional green card holder. I don't recommend travel. Unfortunately, if Pakistan is added, you, you're a conditional green card holder, so you may not be allowed to re-enter. Again, let me know your personal situation, why you have to go there, and we can talk and we can weigh the pros and cons in your specific situation. That's for Nadia Naeem. So this is a great question. If you are a dual citizen and hold nationality of Canada and one of the 7 countries, are you subject to the ban? The answer is yes. So although the order doesn't state this specifically, the Department of State has come out in a statement, you can find it in the Wall Street Journal, that they will be applying this ban to dual nationals, not nationals of the US, but dual nationals of other countries. If someone is going to Umrah this February, is it going to be a problem? That's a difficult one to answer. I would advise to give me specifics of a specific situation, and then I'll let you know. Right now, we're expecting additional screening and inspection at the border for pretty much any Muslim, unfortunately. So, but is it going to be a problem in general? I can't answer that question without, more specific information. So good question. I heard dual nationals, U.S. citizens plus citizens of the 7 listed countries are also being covered by the executive order. Is this true? So far this is definitely a question that the immigration legal community is talking about. But so far, the Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security have not stated that this will affect them. Like I said, U.S. citizens have, a near absolute right to enter the U.S. So they haven't said that they're going to be excluding U.S. citizens, even if you have dual nationality with one of the 7 countries. I have a green card and my daughters are U.S. citizens. We are planning to go to Pakistan on February 1st. Should I go or no? So again, let me just say this. If you are a green card holder, if you are a lawful permanent resident and you are a national of a Muslim majority country, including Pakistan, we do not recommend international travel. Now, this is specifically for the reason that the executive order allows for President Trump to add any country pretty much at any time. Specifically, after 60 days, he'll get a list of countries from the Department of Homeland Security and Department of State, and he'll add them. So this is a blanket advisal for lawful permanent residents who are nationals of Muslim majority countries. We don't generally advise travel right now. Okay, so I'm going to take one more question and then we're going to close out. For those of us on the East Coast, it's almost 10 o'clock. Final question, I'm a U.S. citizen. Can I go to Pakistan? So U.S. citizens, like I said, are able to travel to Pakistan and they should be allowed to re-enter. You just want to go with, number one, the notion in mind that you will and maybe, very likely may be subject to secondary inspection. And number two, before coming back, even before leaving, know your rights. So those are the 2 important things for U.S. citizens traveling to a Muslim majority country. So we're going to end here. I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for watching and viewing, and hopefully if this is a success, which I hope it was, we're going to continue over the next few days, possibly go over, maybe do another Q&A session or go over the other 2 executive orders on border security and public safety. So I just want to close out again with what everybody says. For your specific situation, I highly advise contacting an immigration attorney. So you're free to contact me. Go to my website, www.yunuslaw.com, or message me on Facebook. I've had tons of messages on Facebook, and I try to get to them as soon as possible. Or email me at afia@yunuslaw.com, and I'll put that in the chat box. just so you guys have it. And I will try to get your questions as soon as I can. Email is usually best, or a Facebook message. So I thank you all, and you know,